For thousands of years, a legend has remained hidden.
There's this one night that I can remember, where at night, all you could hear were the howls and the screams that just came echoing from the woods.
Of a beast that only lives in folklore.
I turned around, and that's when Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, walked out of myth and into reality.
A creature believed to be the missing link between humans and apes.
I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that what I was looking at that day was not a human.
Are these animals real, or a part of our imagination? Find out right here on Sasquatch Diaries.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sasquatch Diaries podcast. I am your host, Gus G, and I am so excited to be back this week. The past couple of weeks since I uploaded the pilot episode have been very busy, just with the whole COVID-19 thing and my job. So I'm very glad to be back. Everything's all sorted out and we're good to go. This week's podcast features a gentleman named Gabe from Central Florida who had an encounter at a national park just a mere 25 minutes from where he lives, which is absolutely incredible. So let's jump right in. And let's give a warm welcome to Gabe. Thanks very much. Gabe, are you there?
All right. Well, my name is Gabriel. I live in Central Florida. I lived here for most of my life, and that's about it about me.
Okay. What do you do? Are you a student, or are you working, or what's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm a college student right now. I'm getting my AA right now in music production, and I work. Given the circumstances that are going on today, kind of hard to find work, but I'm managing.
Awesome. Good for you. And when did your encounter occur, and where did your encounter occur?
So this took place in December of 2019. I can't remember the exact date, but it was kind of in between Christmas and New Year's, around there. And this took place on a nature reserve here in Central Florida. It's called Shingle Creek. It's kind of the beginnings of where the headwaters of the Everglades begin and kind of flow down south. Kind of there in a creek. I used to go there to go hiking or fishing, and apparently that day something decided to join with me.
Wow. Okay. And were you with anybody, or were you by yourself, or what happened exactly?
Yeah, so on this day, I decided to go fishing by myself. This trail kind of has a creek that goes down alongside, and I usually go by myself to go fishing. So I was there for about 2 hours at most. I walked about a mile and a half down the trail, and I decided to just take a break from walking that much. So I kind of stepped off to the side of the trail, kind of right next to the creek. And I kind of sat there for a few minutes, and it was a kind of breezy day. Not bad weather. I know Florida winters here they're not too bad. So it was in the 70s. It was a pretty nice day out. But I took a break, and then I decided to keep going downstream to do some more fishing. So when I walk down the trail, I will occasionally step into kind of spots that are in between trees to kind of access the creek. So I did that, and then as I was kind of looking down into the water at this place where kind of two smaller creeks join to meet a bigger river, and then that flows out into a lake. I kind of stopped alongside the water, and I was looking to see if there's any fish there. And as I was looking down, I kind of stopped, and I had this feeling someone's watching me, or someone's around. Mm-hmm. And mind you, I'm in the middle of a swamp by myself, and the only thing for protection that I had at the time was a little hunting knife that I carry with me. So if someone wants to kind of do me harm, or there's an animal around, there won't be much help to protect me. So I kind of got that kind of that feeling of being watched. So as I was looking down in the water, I looked up across on the other shore of the creek, about like 70 feet away. I noticed there was like something blackish brown kind of at the base of a tree just off the shore of the other side of the creek. And I'm looking at it and I'm just like, oh, that's probably like a wild hog, because we have those here down south and they get pretty big. And I kept looking at it, I'm like, no, that's way too big to be a hog. So I'm like, oh, maybe it's a bear, because we also have bears down here as well. And kind of as I was trying to figure out what this was, that's when whatever this thing was kind of stood up on two legs.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I saw it stand up, I was like I kind of like freaked out internally. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? And it kind of stood up and then kind of turned to look at me while I was looking at it. And then it kind of went behind the tree that it was crouching down by. And it kind of hid behind the tree and like peeked out from the side. And the face on this thing was, not gonna lie, pretty terrifying.
Really?
Given the fact that I was there by myself and I had no idea what this thing was. So one of the things that really stuck out to me were the eyes. It was just like these big black eyes, and had like a flat nose. I don't want to say like gorilla, because you know how they have a certain like shaped nose. We have like ours that are like clearly nostrils.
Yeah.
Similar to ours, but it was like really flat, and then it was like really thin lips and like a black leathery skin, that type of thing. And I'm like looking at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? And it did the whole, look behind the tree, and it was just looking at me. And then it kind of opened its mouth, and I could see its teeth, like yellowish teeth. And it was at that point I'm like, I gotta get out of here. So I took my fishing rods and I like ran down that trail nonstop. So there was about a mile run I didn't stop. And I kind of kept looking back and forth. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if that thing like crossed the river to follow me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just got to get out, get to my car. So once I got kind of down the trail enough, I kind of caught my breath, and I'm just still trying to process what it was that I saw.
Wow. like, what? Like, and I've done a few interviews with you. And is it okay if I call you Gabe? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
For sure. So I've done a few interviews, Gabe, and every single one, it's, people are always seeing these creatures from a distance. But the fact that you were, 75 feet away, you said? 70 feet?
Roughly? Yeah, so like 70. It was just across the creek.
So you saw it pretty darn clearly then. And it was like you could tell the color of its teeth and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty freaky.
So overall, how long did the encounter last, would you say?
Like 20, 25 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, and it was a pretty clear day, so there's nothing really obscuring my view.
Of course, yeah. And mind you, I mean, like when your heart is pumping adrenaline through your body, I mean, that must have felt like an hour, probably, those 25 seconds.
Yeah, and the whole time I was like trying to figure out, because I've seen wildlife. I go out onto trails, into the swamps and the forests, and I've seen my fair share of wildlife down here, and that's nothing I've ever seen.
I'm speechless. This is absolutely incredible. So, the teeth, you said that would you say, did it show its teeth like in a way that was like almost like smiling, or would you say that it, and I know that sounds weird, or was it more like get out of here, like leave, don't mess with me kind of thing?
It was like just opening its mouth, just like kind of partially opening its mouth where you could still see it.
Okay. And did you see, because I've heard different things from different folks. So I've heard that, up where I am, I'm kind of right on the doorstep of the Pacific Northwest. So I'm in southwestern Alberta, Canada, which is like right where I'm directly north of Montana and Washington State, if that gives you
Right.
kind of an idea as to where I am. Now, the Sasquatches out here are told to have flat horse-like teeth. And then I've heard different things like down south in like the Southwest, Southern California, Arizona, and then in the Southeast United States, like Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, these animals have flat teeth, but they also have canines similar to like a gorilla, like sharp teeth. Did this animal have that as well?
I couldn't tell from the distance that I was at.
Okay.
I could definitely tell like they were. I could distinguish the color, but not like the shape.
Okay. And would you say like this animal? Would you have said it was a male or a female? What do you think?
I really don't know because I know from descriptions that I've heard these things can be pretty big,
Uh-huh.
but this one I feel like might have been on the younger side because it wasn't like ginormous, but it wasn't like small either. It was kind of I want to say about 6.5 feet.
Okay.
I know those things can get pretty big, so
Yeah.
but this wasn't like too ginormous.
So your theory is that it was a juvenile then?
Yeah, probably. And I'm not quite sure that because I know down here we have like what's called the skunk ape,
Uh-huh.
and it usually gives off pretty like bad smell.
Uh-huh.
But I know that day was pretty breezy, and I'm guessing that I was kind of upwind, so it probably knew I was there before I knew it was there. So I
Okay.
didn't get any whiff of that.
Gotcha. So your theory is that it probably smelled you beforehand.
Yeah,
Okay. And then you said it was at the base of a tree and it went behind the tree and peeked out at you, correct?
right. It was like crouching, probably like right in front of the tree, and then I guess probably noticed, and then kind of stood up, looked, and then kind of crouched behind the tree and like peeked out. You could see like the head, and then probably like a hand trying to give like leverage, I guess.
Okay. Now, were you able to see how many fingers or anything like that was on it?
Oh, it was pretty like our hands.
Really?
Yeah, like our hands.
Wow. So this animal, obviously, I mean, just from the description, you know that there was no way this was a person. There was no way this was a bear.
No, and um, I can say as a Floridian, there's no way I would get into the kind of the rivers here or into the swamps. There's like no way because they're alligators. They get pretty big snakes.
Right.
No way you'd want to be in those waters or kind of off the path. So for a person to do that would be pretty dumb and unsafe for them to do that. So I'm pretty sure it wasn't a person or like an animal or anything that I've seen.
Wow. So you said it was reddish brown fur, correct?
Like blackish brown.
Oh, blackish brown. Okay. So the were there any areas that wasn't covered? I mean, obviously the face, correct? Like it was like a grayish leather like skin, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So but there was hair pretty much everywhere else, right?
Yeah, pretty much everywhere else except on the face.
Okay. And how muscular would you say this thing was? Like, was it tall and skinny, kind of like lanky, or was it pretty big, like almost like a linebacker, almost like a football player?
It was pretty thin. That's why I'm thinking like, oh, maybe this is younger because I've heard like they're like well built, but this one was pretty like thin on the
Okay.
thinner side. So that's why I'm like, maybe this is a younger, an adolescent or something like that.
Wow. So did you feel threatened in any way while you were there?
No, but I was still, freaked out.
Of course. Yeah, I was just because when it opened its mouth, that was almost like I've read about that, with primates and stuff like that. That's one way they intimidate other primates to like leave their area, because some animals can be fairly territorial, and I've read about these animals being fairly territorial. So I was just trying to figure out like, hey, was it trying to get you out of there and be like, hey, don't mess with me, this is my territory kind of thing. That's why I'm showing you my teeth. I'm gritting my teeth at you.
I'm not sure. I feel like maybe it was taken like as a surprise, like since it was facing away, and then I was suddenly there, so I was probably a little shocked that I kind of showed up.
Wow, absolutely incredible. Okay, so this was in the Shingle Park, you said?
Shingle Creek.
Shingle Creek.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and you're from Central Florida. How long would you say to get from your door, your home in Florida, all the way to this place would have taken? Including walking down the trail and everything.
Probably like 15 minutes, and then another 10 to walk.
Wow. Holy mackerel. So you're in, are you in one of the larger cities, if I may ask, too? Like, are you in like Orlando or Sunrise or anything like that, or?
Orlando, like the Orlando metro area.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So now that I'm thinking about it, it's like 25 minutes roughly from your own door, you saw something that you never even thought existed, probably. Had you heard of this creature, prior to this encounter?
I have. It's well known here. Like I don't want to say well known, but in Florida we do have like the skunk ape, and I have heard about the legends of it, and I've always thought that was like more down south because I live in the middle of the state, so down south where the Everglades is and towards Miami, that area, that's where there's more sightings. But where I live, it's pretty much on the edge of where I guess the most populated areas are of Central Florida, and then we have a lot of like swamps, wetlands, and prairies down here. So we live right on the edge. So that's why I'm able to see like wild hogs and bears and a lot of different wildlife, and a lot of that passes through my front lawn. So I'm pretty accustomed to the wildlife that I see here. But I've always kind of kept that in the back of my mind, like, oh, I spend so much time out here, maybe I'll see something one day. But on that day, I didn't really think about that, of like seeing something or joking around to myself. So it was a bit of a shock when I kind of came face to face with this thing.
I'm at a loss for words. I mean, this is unbelievable. Because like I said, and if I may ask too, like beforehand, before you had this encounter, were you a believer, or were you kind of like, oh, that's kind of an old wives' tale or a folk tale kind of thing? Or were you like, oh, maybe there is something, but you never know kind of thing?
I'm interested into cryptids and the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
I am the type of person that looks for the best logical answer to things before we start bringing in stuff that we're pretty unsure of. So I'll always look for like a logical explanation for things, and then if there's like no logical explanation, then I'm totally like accepting of the unknown and things that science can't explain. So I'm not sure of what I saw. I feel like I have a good idea, but I guess to the rest of the world, it's kind of like all just a story and just folklore. But from what I saw was like a living, breathing animal.
Wow. Now, when you came home, I'm sure that was a very emotional car ride, the whole ride home. I mean, you were probably millions of things were running through your mind at that point. Did you tell anybody, or did you talk about it, or was it kind of like, I'm not going to talk to anybody about this, or I'm just going to try to forget it kind of thing?
I was definitely pretty shocked. I kind of had to sit in my car and like relax for a little bit because of what I saw, and then and I kind of ran a mile straight. So I was pretty like overwhelmed. But when I got home, I didn't tell anybody because I know my family's gonna be like, "Oh, that's nothing. You watch too many scary movies." But I did see my friend, or I did tell my one of my close friends that I do trust, and she was like, there's a lot of stuff in this world that we don't know, so it's pretty much a possibility.
And she believed you, kind of thing, or was she kind of like, oh, it's okay, that like.
I think she believes me because she's definitely in tune to like spirituality and kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, like chakras and karmas and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So I told her and her brother, and he's kind of told me that what I probably saw was more on the spiritual side, like, oh, maybe I saw like a sort of a demon or a bad spirit or something. And although that could be a possibility, I definitely heard of the kind of the theories that are coming up recently, like Sasquatch, or these animals are like interdimensional animals that they come and go out of our reality. So I don't know if that's a possibility, but that's definitely something that um, I've heard, and perhaps I kind of caught a glimpse of this as I was coming in and out of our world, I guess, but who knows?
So do you think this encounter was a spiritual encounter, or do you think it was more science related and this is an actual living, breathing animal and you just happened to cross paths with it coincidentally?
Oh, I definitely think this was like a living, breathing thing
Okay.
because the way it interacts with the environment, it had to like physically be there. So I'm leaning more alongside the kind of, it's an animal, like blood and flesh type of thing.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And when you did see it, it was along the creek. Was it drinking from the creek, or was it just kind of hanging out there and looking at you, or?
I couldn't tell. It was facing, like, its back was towards me, and as it was crouched on the ground, so maybe it was just picking at something on the ground. So once I kind of got there, it just like turned to look at me and kind of just hid. So I'm not sure if it was like eating or just chilling alongside the creek, but I couldn't tell if it was doing anything in particular.
Wow. Now, when you got up, or when it got up rather, to go behind the tree, did it make any noise? Like, did you hear leaves crunching beneath its feet, or was it like pretty quiet?
It was a pretty breezy day, so definitely had like the wind rustling through the trees and branches and all that moving. So I wasn't able to hear anything um, based on like being that close from it. I couldn't really hear anything from the surrounding sounds.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. Now, have you gone back to that site where you did see it?
I have not been there in months, and I'm very like apprehensive to go back there.
Of course, of course. And if I may ask, if you were to go, like, do you think it'll take you a while to go back fishing or out in the woods? Like, do you hunt as well, or do you just fish, or?
I just fish and go hiking.
Okay. And do you think it'll take you a while to get back out there?
So that specific spot, it would, because where that is, it kind of gets to really dense forest, and it's pretty it's a trail that not many people use. So I'm pretty much out there by myself in the middle of nowhere. So in order to see that again by myself without any like real protection, then it's a it's a no go for me. But um, it's gonna have to take me some time to get some nerve to go back up there.
No kidding. No kidding. Wow. Now, would you, if you do end up going hiking, or fishing or what have you, and it's in an area, maybe not this particular area, but in an area where sightings of these animals have taken place, do you think you're going to go maybe with a gun probably instead, or go with friends instead? Strength in numbers kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd rather go and with other people because I definitely don't want to hurt whatever these things are. It didn't do me any harm. So I don't really have a reason to shoot at one of these things because you never know like what it could be, and I definitely don't want to send it like the wrong message, or if it has a species, send it a wrong message from ours.
Of course. Yeah, no, because again, too, you were saying, you didn't really feel threatened. You were just kind of freaked out in that moment, obviously, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, this animal too, I've heard different things. I've heard that they, communicate in different ways. Did you hear anything like when it opened its mouth? Did it growl? Did it snort or make some kind of a noise or a vocalization? Or was it kind of just like, almost kind of like a yawn, it sounds like, or it was just opening its mouth to, just opening its mouth?
I didn't hear any sounds. I feel like it was kind of like like you surprised me, you shocked me that you were there. So it was kind of, I don't want to say like it was baring its teeth, but it was just um, kind of like in shock, like a shocked face, you startled me.
Yeah. And, for it to go behind the tree and still look at you, I mean, that strikes me as pretty curious behavior, because if it felt threatened, it probably would have, charged towards you. Or if you scared it, it probably would have taken right off into the woods, right? Like, but it sounds like it had just stood there and just looked at you for a couple of minutes, or a couple seconds rather.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it didn't feel afraid of me because if it definitely like felt threatened, I guess it would have either like fought back or ran away. So I guess I kind of just shocked it. You never know if like these things ever like seen like a human before. So maybe I was its first human that it's seen and was like really surprised and shocked to have seen me just as much as I saw it.
Wow. Yeah. And that's the vibe I'm getting too from it. I think it's just one of the reasons I created this channel was, obviously a safe space for folks to share it and not be judged, and kind of just run through and kind of just tell people, hey, this is what I saw. And I know what I saw was real and not, a guy in a suit or a bear or something else, But from what I'm hearing from you, I mean, this not only sounds like a close encounter, this sounds like it was something real. It was not something that you really could mistake with anything else. I mean, the getting up and crawling behind, or going up and hiding behind a tree on two legs is kind of a dead giveaway to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. And from the distance I was at, I'm pretty sure this is like a physical, real thing. Um, no animal that I've ever seen, and I don't think it was a person because in order to get to that spot, you would have to cross a creek with alligators and snakes and all that in it, and no Floridian would do that. I can assure you.
Yeah,
Well,
of course.
smart ones that at the least, but yeah, this was definitely something physically there, and something that I have not ever encountered in my life.
Yeah. So, and like you had mentioned that you talked to your friend and your friend's brother. Have you ever reached out to any of the like? Were you thinking about reaching out to a park ranger? Because you said it was in a national park, correct?
Yeah, it's like a kind of a nature preserve. I don't really see any park rangers there, but I did try and reach out to the BFRO, but I haven't really given anything out. So when my friend, she recommended your channel, and I saw your post about, sharing stories, I thought maybe I should, because I know other people probably do, and they feel kind of alienated as to not say anything. So I just wanted to say what I saw, kind of to, show the other people like what you saw is pretty valid.
Yeah, and that's our main focus here at Sasquatch Diaries is we just want folks to come forward and share what they saw, and it's a judgment-free zone. I mean, we totally respect everybody's privacy, because I've had folks, who are like, I interviewed another guy before, Gabe, who is a professor at a local university, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what if he came forward and started sharing publicly about his encounter? I mean, he'd be laughed at, or he'd be mocked, and he'd probably lose his job, because he's a biology teacher at the University of Calgary. I mean, it's the fact that we live in an age where, we can accept so many other things, but we can't accept people seeing something, because you don't have a picture of it, or you don't have blood or hair or what have you. The encounter, it's like almost that mentality of pics where it didn't happen.
Yeah, definitely. And even though online you do see like all this evidence of like pictures and videos and sound recordings, a lot of them could be fakes, but I've seen some pretty like genuine ones that I feel like do represent something that is there and kind of interacting with in our world and interacting with people who've seen it. So to kind of discount this, which has been seen like throughout the world for thousands of years and has like different stories with different cultures around the world, there's no way this is like a mass hysteria type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, the one thing that, prompted me to start this channel as well is there's sightings of these creatures on every continent except Antarctica, where there are no people, really. I mean, I'm sure there's people in Antarctica, but, there may or may not be those creatures living there. It's, people haven't explored it quite enough, and then you get into talks about, all these other creatures, but I try to stick with these ones because there's so many people living in Canada as well as the United States, such as yourself, who have had these encounters, and they just don't know who to talk to or what to say about it, or how to go about dealing with it.
Right, exactly. And I always think about it as like I know definitely here in the States, like the Native Americans here, they definitely do have their stories that have been passed down like generations from before European settlement, and they definitely did record things that they saw. And I think they're pretty wise people. So for them to kind of like make stuff up, sure, there's an element of that, but there's definitely a basis in reality of what they saw and what they decided to record and pass down for thousands of years.
Yeah, and it's a fact. I mean, every tribe, I was reading, every tribe in Canada, we call them, you guys call them Native Americans, we call them Aboriginal people. So every Aboriginal tribe in Canada has a different name for these creatures, but they all describe the same thing: large, hairy, covered men, or humans, I guess you could say, that live in remote areas, in mountains and wooded areas and all that kind of stuff. So, it prompts me to think, well, maybe, we're hearing stories of animals that haven't been discovered yet. I mean, there's animals that are being discovered every day, different species of fish, amphibians. I mean, there's so many large parts of the Amazon as well too that haven't even been discovered yet, that we don't know about. Who knows what kind of animals or wildlife are living in that area, and it's just so deep and so dangerous in these jungles that we just haven't had a chance to go and see it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And especially down here in Florida, where although we do have like high population, there are parts of the state where it's pretty underdeveloped, and there's no like human habitation, and there's plenty of space in the swamps, in the forests, in the grasslands that we have here that does have like the space and resources for just organisms of that size, and like the extent of whatever kind of social classes or like groups that they have. there's definitely the resources there for for them to survive. If we're thinking about this like on a scientific level, because organisms need like space, they need a certain amount of food to eat and water. So um, the swamps and the wilderness down here in Florida, it's pretty plentiful. So um, we do have big animals like we do have panthers down in the very very south of the state. So those are big animals, and we have deers and bears. So um, it's a great possibility that something of that scale does have the resources necessary to survive.
Yeah, of there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, people always bring um, that possibility to my attention, especially being out here in Alberta, Canada. And where I am, I mean, it's right on the doorstep of the Rocky Mountains, and people are like, "Oh, you're describing an 1,000-pound ape that's roughly 6 to 8 feet tall. What the heck would they eat?" And I go, "Well, 1,000-pound grizzly gets along just fine in this area. What makes you think these types of animals wouldn't have that same issue? You know what I mean? Or they wouldn't have the same sort of success, right?"
Exactly. And I feel like they also have, I want to say they have like, I guess, near human intelligence, because I feel like they're very intelligent animals, given that they are rarely seen and rarely like recorded by actual like scientists. And even though we haven't found any credible evidence, I guess, like bodies or hair or tissue samples, um, there's probably like a very good chance that they're very intelligent and probably just want to hide from us, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the way you had described your encounter too is it's almost as if this creature knew you were coming or knew you were there before you did, almost in a way.
Definitely. And probably it couldn't pinpoint it, but I guess I popped up a little too soon and I probably surprised it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what led ultimately to you looking at it and it looking at you, and then you saying, "All right, time for me to go," kind of thing. "I'm getting out of here. This is freaky."
Exactly.
Yeah. Now this creature, was it significantly larger than you, would you say?
Yeah, I would definitely say it was a lot taller than me because I'm like 5'8". So I want to say this thing was, I want to say like 6.5, 6 feet tall. Not I don't want to say it was like lanky, but it was on the thinner side, not like a like football player, but tall and kind of like thinnish.
Thin. Okay. Okay. Um, how long were the arms? Do you remember that at all?
Not the arms. I do remember like the hand being placed on the tree.
Okay.
And I was kind of looking at the face and the eyes, so it kind of caught my attention most. So I didn't really get a chance to look at the arms or the length of the arms, but um, from the legs, I could definitely tell like they were pretty like, I don't want to say, because bears have like shorter legs. These are like human legs that have significant length to them.
Okay. Okay. Wow. uh, I'm in shock at just the fact that like the details that you remember. Not only that, it's how close you were. It's just it's absolutely mind blowing. Um, one thing I wanted to ask you too is I know that there's a lot of pictures on the internet floating around right about now that are whether they're drawings or they're actual pictures of this supposed creature. Have you seen any pictures on the internet that jumped out at you and was like, wow, that looks exactly kind of like what I saw?
I did try going on to the BR website. I know they do like submissions of kind of trying to recreate what people saw, and there was this one sketch that kind of stood out to me of what kind of closely matched what I saw, because I know like the typical sighting is like a big stocky animal with like a pointed head with like a crest, kind of similar to gorilla. but this one didn't really have like that pointed head. It was more flat. So, and then the nose was like a human nose, but pretty flat. You could definitely see the nostrils, not just like the I guess gorillas' noses, where they're just like the holes, but like literally like human nostril nose, kind of, but squished down. So it definitely kind of like shocked me when I saw like that was like the closest description or the closest that I could describe it if I had to like draw it for somebody. That picture that I did see.
Okay, definitely. Wow. Wow. This is absolutely incredible. Now Shingle Creek, do you think it's a place you'll ever go back to? Like, for example, if someone from the BFRO did reach out to you and was like, Gabe, I want you to take me back to the site and show me the exact spot where it was standing and where it was crouching behind the tree and all that jazz, would you be able to do that, or do you think it's going to take some time for you to do that?
As long as I'm not by myself, I'm willing to do that.
Wow. Okay. So it definitely did leave a lasting impression. It's almost like a negative one. Well, I don't want to say, well, yes and no, negative. I mean, obviously it wasn't threatening, but it definitely scared you to death for sure.
Definitely. And I've been to that area multiple times. So I guess it's just the fact that like this thing was pretty close to some place that I go to a lot, and I haven't seen it. So something of that magnitude that was pretty close to me, and who knows like how many other times it was pretty close to me and I just didn't see it. So the fact that I did see it this one time, that who knows how many times it was very close and I didn't even see it.
Did you ever, like, you said you had gone back to this site multiple times. Did you ever have another feeling, before, or did you hear anything or see anything that was strange? Because I've read about tree structures. Do you know what those are exactly?
Yeah, I think so. It's like when they lay like different trees kind of like in formations.
Correct. Yeah, kind of similar to a Native American teepee. You know what I mean? Like they'll place trees one on top of the other in strange formations. It could be like 3, 4, 5, 6, multiple different trees, and they're all together. Or did you see tree breaks? Did you hear wood knocks? Did you hear howls or screams? I take it you probably go during the day. You wouldn't go out there at night, probably.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any like of those structures. It definitely does notice like the wildlife, I guess, like the birds, they do go quiet. And I've encountered like times where, you hear the birds like singing, and then squirrels like scurrying around. But there are times that it just gets quiet and it's pretty noticeable.
Really?
So I get that feeling like I hope there's not like a bear around, because all the animals have gotten quiet. So does probably mean something is around, but I'm not sure what it is for those times that I did, but those happened before my encounter.
Okay. And did you ever feel in the past too, like, was there ever a time that you had gone fishing or for a hike where you did feel like you were being watched as well, or like something was around but you couldn't see it, kind of thing? Have you ever had that feeling before?
Sometimes, but I feel like maybe my mind is just playing tricks on me.
Right.
That type of thing.
Right. Okay. And now when you did see this creature, like you had said like before you saw it, probably you did feel like you were being watched. Is that correct?
Yeah. Like right before I saw it, as I was looking down into the water to see if there's like any fish in the creek, I kind of like stopped and like, it feels really weird. Like I feel like somebody's close by.
Yeah.
So, and then that's when I looked up.
Wow. Okay. So so I was going to say, like, you probably definitely felt something more intense at that point in time, just because you actually did see something. But I was like wondering, it's like, holy crap, like, was it ever that intense? Like, was the feeling of being watched ever as intense as right before you saw it?
Oh no, I've never had like that type of feeling before.
Hmm.
So other than like, oh, maybe that's something in the back of my head, like, oh, something's nearby. But on that day, like the intensity of that feeling, I've never experienced that before while I'm out in the woods by myself.
Yeah, yeah. Was it kind of like a knot in your stomach or a pit in your stomach, and then you kind of just like your instinct kind of told you look up, and look to your left or what have you?
It was definitely like my mind, like, there's like something around, like, take a look at your surroundings, because like you feel a presence. And because sometimes you'll get like bikers who come down like the trail really fast, so you kind of got to watch out. um like that type of urgency that you get, like you got to move out of the way, so like you're paying attention to your surroundings. But I kind of got that intense feeling like I got to look around and make sure like I'm safe. So when I did like look up, that's when I saw this.
Wow, holy crap. That's definitely something you won't forget, to say the least, for sure. And do you think it's a story that, you will tell to other people, or are you cautious of opening up about this type of thing to other people?
Probably after some time has passed, I can probably tell this to other people, like in person. But for right now, I guess I would have to keep it to myself, because you know, not everybody's like as open minded to these type of things.
No, no, of course not. I mean, it's like I said before, it's almost like Pixar, it didn't happen, or I can't believe you. It's sometimes,
Yeah,
people are telling the truth. And again, this is why I want people to remain anonymous, or at least have that option, it's just out of respect for people's privacy, and just, creating a level of understanding, because there's people out there who, I've heard different things. I've heard about people coming forward with their encounters, and then, someone from the government shows up at their door and it's just like, what did you see? uh I saw a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch or whatever. And they're just like, no, you saw a bear. I'm just going to write down you saw a bear. And you go, who are you and what are you doing here? You know what I mean? I don't know if you've heard
oh
that
yeah,
at all before.
oh yeah, I've heard that. And like, I guess like Men in Black type of thing, like
Yeah,
they're coming to your door telling you like, don't say anything.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, and, is that, has that thought run through your mind? Is like, I don't want to open up to it because I don't want strange people showing up at my door asking me questions, kind of thing?
um I guess it's more of like not wanting to be ridiculed by like family or people who are close to me.
Of course.
Because I don't think like any of them would like go off to the police and then like they call the government. I don't think it's like that, unless I'm like posting about it and posting some, I guess, credible information that the government wants to keep on the down low. So I guess it's more of a like a not wanting to be ridiculed by close family, I guess.
Okay. And the people that you've told it's just obviously myself now, and your two friends. Like, do your parents know anything about it, or like your siblings or anything like that?
No, I haven't told them. Just my two other friends.
Okay. And what was their reaction as well? Sorry, was the two friends you told me about, or were there another two friends as well?
No, just them two.
Okay. Okay. So, and the BFRO, they haven't said anything yet.
No, I haven't. I tried like, I guess, submitting like a report, but I haven't heard anything back from them.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, that's just absolutely amazing. I honestly, I can't thank you enough, Gabe, for coming on the show and sharing this encounter with us. This is absolutely incredible. What, and for those people who are listening, what piece of advice would you give to them, if they did either come across one of these creatures? What would you say to them what to do is?
Definitely have respect. Don't try like threatening or harming, I guess, these creatures. Um, I felt no threat towards them, and I feel like they don't want anything to do with us. So, I guess just don't harm them, don't bother them. Just like any other animal you see in the forest, just watch. if you have the nerve to stay and watch. But I think that these are pretty intelligent living creatures, so definitely have the respect for them and then their environment. So ask to avoid any conflicts, because we definitely don't want that as like a hello from our species to theirs.
Of course. And our theory is, here at Sasquatch Diaries, is that this isn't one animal. You didn't see the Sasquatch, or you saw a Sasquatch. It's one, or a skunk ape, rather, or whatever you want to call it. You saw one of them, and it's a species of multiple creatures. And the amazing thing about this is that, there's theories that they do in fact have a language. They have some kind of culture. Obviously they are, the link in between apes and humans, literally. And we, are so inclined. It's like, we don't know much about it, so let's kill it and study it, kind of thing. Well, why don't we just study it from afar and respect it? And that's, I think, what we want to aim to do here. I mean, from what you've told me, I mean, I don't think, like, if you had a gun at that moment and you were looking at it through the scope and you had the crosshairs right on the middle of its forehead, on its face, do you think you'd be able to pull the trigger, or did it just look like too human to you?
I definitely wouldn't. Along with the fact that it does look pretty human, but also that this is something that, who knows, like maybe they're on the verge of extinction and there really isn't that much of a population for them to survive. So I wouldn't want to kill whatever this could be, and I guess lower its numbers down. So just like any other animal, just watching from a distance and observing them in their natural habitat is probably the best thing for them, and then for us as well, because you definitely don't want to kind of destroy whatever's left of their species.
Definitely. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think we can learn a lot from them, in so many different ways, because it sounds like it's an amazing animal, and my stance is that it is an animal. I don't see, like, I've heard a lot of things about these, like you said, being interdimensional. I've heard that there are aliens inside of them or whatever, and they just disappear from our world and go to their planet in outer space. I'm kind of like, I think these are a real living, breathing animal, and we just haven't discovered yet. We just don't have enough evidence to classify it, like in a museum or in university textbooks or regular textbooks for that matter. It's one of those animals that we just don't know about, and it's living right in our backyard.
Exactly. And I wish the scientific community would, take a better stance at this. And I know these things depend on like funding and support, like financial support, in order to do studies like this. And definitely scientists' credibility is on the line, because having, like, saying a professional biologist saying that he's going to go study these creatures, I'm pretty sure it would make him less credible in the eyes of his colleagues or whatever institution he works for. So I guess there's that hesitation of wanting to study. So we're just left with us regular folks to do the job.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. And then one thing I wanted to ask as well too is, with the whole epidemic that's going on right now, it's not as crazy up here, just given the population that we have here in Canada. We're countrywide about 35 to 40 million people total. And then down south in the US, it's like 350 million. Do you have a theory? And I was thinking about this the other day. The area that you were in, it's pretty close to residential areas. Do you think that because of COVID-19 and what's going on, everyone's indoors, everyone's staying home, people are less likely to go out and do things? Do you think it's more likely that these creatures will start coming closer within city limits, do you think? Just because there's no human activity, or obviously far less human activity?
I definitely think that's a possibility. I know that I guess normal animals they are coming out into um, our areas more now that there's less traffic and less people out and about. So I think that's definitely a possibility. Um, Given that I know state parks are closed down here, and national parks are closed down here, so there's definitely like more. It's safer for them to come out without being seen. So it's definitely a possibility. Um, if the state does decide to kind of open up national parks and uh, those uh, those things are kind of out and about, there might be a possibility that they could be seen a bit more than normal.
Yeah, it's a definite theory. I mean, and I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, there's so many, wildlife preserves and national parks where these animals have been seen, and it almost seems like you got to go pretty far deep into there. And now with human activity being much more relaxed and less common, it's kind of almost like, these creatures are kind of almost like, looks like we can come out of our shell and go to places that we had never been before, walk down trails that, folks walk, because it's like you said, I mean, you were at a creek that was just right off a trail, and, you said there were bikers that, passed by on that same trail, correct?
Right.
So do you think, maybe this animal, seeing as though it was a juvenile, most likely was kind of like, being rebellious and exploring its surroundings and kind of just being like, hey, I'm going to go check out this area where, it's pretty wide open. I don't know if there's any people here, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's weird kind of down here where we do live like in a pretty popular area. I live pretty close to Disney World, so
I
we
was just
definitely do
going to
have
say,
that population. Yeah. I do live near Disney World, but we have like all this like these people living here and civilization, but you can literally go down the road 10 minutes and you'll be on a two-way road in the middle of the woods. No electricity, no anything, no cell phone signal, no lights. So you can go from pretty much like Disney World, and then a couple miles down the road you'll be in the middle of nowhere. So we do have a lot of wilderness that surrounds the populated areas, and it's pretty dense and not really cultivated, I guess. So it's pretty thick woods and cow pastures. So there's definitely like, I guess, highways you can say for them to travel around where we live. And given the fact that we do have a lot of water and rivers down here, that's another way that they can, I guess, easily maneuver around our civilization.
Yeah, and it's opening up the possibility to other resources for these animals. There's probably reservoirs where that's where people get their drinking water. There's large dumps probably that are fairly remote, and they can go scrounge around for food. Or there's farms too, where people have, corn husks, for example. I don't think there's corn husks in Florida, but I'm just giving an example. Or, farms with livestock, goats, chickens, cows, pigs, all that kind of stuff, of which these animals have been said to raid and steal chickens and pigs and all that kind of stuff, because it's an easy food resource for them.
Yeah. And definitely down here, we do have a lot of like orange pastures and orange groves.
Okay.
We definitely do have like a lot of fruit and potatoes and mangoes and bananas. So we do have like a lot of farmland that's like right on the edges of these unworked wilderness. So it's a pretty easy, like, even like I could just walk up to an orange field and like pick oranges from a tree. And
Yeah,
it's literally not a problem. So if we're able to do this, I'm pretty sure they are able to do that and more.
Wow. Yeah. And that's, my theory is, I've heard different things about these animals being nocturnal, and, this encounter that you had, what time of day did it take place? Would you say like mid-afternoon, you think, or like
Yeah.
late morning?
Yeah, more of mid-afternoon. It was like two or three in the afternoon around that time.
Okay. Wow. Like that's mind blowing to me. So yeah, I mean, and if I may, have you ever heard like, cause I'll say, you're in the Orlando area. where you are is fairly populated. I mean, Orlando's, what, like 2 million people, give or take, roughly, city size, population?
Probably, yeah. It's a pretty sizable population, and then we do have a lot of tourism, so that population does increase with we do have international tourists, so literally everyone from around the world comes in, and there's a lot of people down here.
Yeah, and I mean, given that you have Disney World there, I mean, that's a major hub for tourism, and you've got folks coming in from, like you said, different countries, and probably from all over the same country, the U.S. as well as the state. I'm sure people from Miami would take their kids to Disneyland, or Disney World rather, so it's a 3-hour drive, hypothetically speaking.
Right. And in between all those population areas, there's really not much. So you'll be on like highways, just going down the middle of nowhere. There's just cow pastures and forests. So although we do have a large population, like in between those populations, there's just a lot of wilderness.
Yeah. It's just, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around the fact that, you were so close to your home. I mean, it was less than half an hour for sure, from your doorstep to this exact spot where you saw this creature, and you're from a city of 2 million people, roughly. It's
right.
Just astounding to me,
Yeah, definitely.
These creatures are, and that's why I have that theory. It's just like, with the whole COVID-19 thing, is like, not only is it easier resources, but it sounds like they're pretty curious creatures. It was poking its head out, looking at you for a couple of seconds, and it might have been afraid of you, or kind of just startled that you snuck up on it, but the fact that it stayed and looked at you and you just looked at it, I mean, you're obviously looking at both of each other, trying to figure out, what the heck are you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And that's why I feel like it's the younger one, because I guess like an older, more experienced like adult would just take off and not want to be seen. So that's why I think this might have been younger, since it kind of just stood there and like looked at me for a little bit, as opposed to running away.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here, Gabe. Like, this is golden material, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope this was helpful to you, or a nice way to kind of get it off your chest and kind of talk about it and talk it out with someone too, in a completely anonymous fashion as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, much appreciated. Thank you so much, Gabe. And we hope to hear from you again soon in the future.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Sasquatch Diaries podcast. If you like what you heard, hit like and subscribe button. Don't forget to come back next week, where we'll have a new entry. And remember, if you or someone you know had an encounter and would like to share it on our show, contact Sasquatch Diaries podcast at gmail.com.